Every now and then, a Pokemon game drops that tries to change the formula. Legends Z-A is one of those games, and it just doesn't ask you to explore. It asks you to think about what it means to live in the Pokemon world, or at least it tries to. Hear me out. After spending hours in this new version of Lumiose, I started realizing something. This game is close to greatness. It's bold, it's different, but it's also filled with potential that hasn't quite been tapped into yet. So today I want to break down what I've learned from playing Pokemon Legends Z-A and how I would take its best ideas and push them even further. Before we get into all that, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me and the video shine bright as Lumiose City in the nighttime, you feel me? But without further ado, let's get into it. One of the biggest things I've realized while playing Pokemon Legends Z-A is how much the world itself dictates the experience. The way time moves, how the light changes, how Pokemon appear, it all plays into how alive the game feels. But that's also where I think the game could evolve into something truly next level. Right now, the day and night cycle feels more like a background timer than an actual living system. It shifts too fast, and the transitions, in my opinion, don't always match the pace of the exploration or the story progression. But I feel like it's done to give more urgency into whether you should catch those Pokemon during the nighttime or collect those challenger points, or whether or not you should farm those shinies that you can only, or farm those Pokemon you can only catch during the day in all of the random zones. So I kind of understand why it moves at the pace it does, but imagine if ZA slowed that rhythm down, gave us a longer, more meaningful periods of morning, day, evening, and night. That's right, if they gave us 4 periods of the day, I feel like that would give us way more room to introduce more Pokemon, more species into the game without it feeling convoluted or overpopulated. Like each phase could have its own tone and identity. Morning light creeping across Lumiose City as shops open, NPCs start their routines, even crowds filling into the cafes, the street lights flickering on, night battles under the dim neon, or the moonlight reflect. This shit sounds amazing. Just all of this giving the players a reason to experience the same world differently across the day. A proper day and night system could even sync with the real time, connecting players to the in-game world the same way Animal Crossing does, but with Pokemon's ecosystem responding dynamically. We can even add changes to the seasons on, I would say, a weekly basis. Like every in real world week is an in-game season. That would give us a month of a full cycle in-game to where a Pokemon could then hibernate. New Pokemon could be spawned in these same wild zones without the need of expanding wild zones or having to introduce further zones into the game. You could literally just, during the winter time, lots more winter Pokemon or Pokemon that can survive in that climate would be visible. And that would allow players to not only have that urgency to catch the Pokemon while they're there, but also to trade with other players just in case you don't have to, or you don't want to wait 2 weeks until this specific season to catch this specific Pokemon. So this could really like bring players together on a more, connected basis on, hey, if I trade you this, I can get this, and I don't have to wait this X amount of time to get it. That's something to me is something we never really had in a Pokemon game. It's literally just, hey, as soon as we can catch them, we can catch them, we can farm them. But this would actually add more depth to that. This would add more, replayability. Not only replayability, but it would actually extend the longevity of the game into more than just 2 months for people, because now you have to wait a certain amount of time to get the certain amount of Pokemon if you want it yourself, versus just a trade. So just adding in that bit of gameplay mechanic would, I feel, just expand on so many different horizons when it comes to the multiplayer aspect, the in-game aspect, the lore aspect, the more missions we can have, the just everything that has to do with the city could be split into 4 different types of Lumiose per se. This could also give the devs a chance to give us real, actual live events, whether it comes through as in-game updates or whether they're pushing them over, as the seasons go on through, the the Battle Club season. Maybe it matches up with that, but every update should at least give us new missions. Every seasonal update should give us basically a new story, like a piece of story for us to interact with. Like it could be so dynamic with just elongating exactly what happens within the game. Like this, it's the possibilities literally could be endless for the devs when it comes to literally just that aspect alone. And if time and weather could just give the world the life, then the NPCs are what's going to give it that soul. Lumiose is supposed to be a living, breathing city, a place where trainers, researchers, and Pokemon coexist in rhythm. But right now, the people around you feel more like background props, I guess I should say, than actual residents of the world. I mean, there are people who give you those quests and everything, and it does kind of help you explore the city in that aspect. But the way I would level this up would be, imagine walking through the city and seeing an NPC versus NPC battle play out just in the open, just a spontaneous match that just happens on one of the trainer courts or outside one of the battle cafes. You could just literally stop and watch the match. You might even see things like a move set or a combo used that maybe you didn't think about, or maybe you see something that works that you might not have thought about, for your own battles. So just that alone could just add to just the livelihood of the city itself. And now it's just not being populated. The city actually feels like it's competitive. There's energy in the city. There's things that the NPCs strive for themselves. So just that aspect alone would be highly enjoyable, to just hear a Pokemon battle going on down the street while you're just randomly in a quest. And instead of you hunting for items or looking for Pokemon, you could literally just take a break and watch other people battle that aren't real trainers. Like it might sound minor, but I guarantee you there will be people probably like just chilling watching random Pokemon battles going on in the city. I know I definitely would. Now, let's take that one step further with the special NPCs. Characters like a shiny hunter who gives you clues to rare encounters or to shiny spawns somewhere in the city. A Poke photographer who challenges you to capture, cool shots of wild Pokemon in different zones. Or maybe a actual Pokemon tracker who monitors, rare Pokemon migrations. Maybe he lets you know that when a rare Pokemon is in the city somewhere, and it's like your job to track them down. And all of these could literally be like repeatable side quests that could happen within the game. Maybe there's a rare shiny Pokemon that could be like a crossover between the Pokemon hunter and the shiny hunter. Like maybe the photographer might get in on this too. Like it's so many cool things that they could do with the way we interact in the city already. And this would not only give, I wouldn't want to say make it easier to do things like catch shinies or rare Pokemon, but it would give it a fun way to introduce those to us as older players, as veteran players, but also newer players. People feeling like they're discouraged from having to find these types of Pokemon, or feeling like it's a little bit overwhelming. Now they have a way that's not necessarily saying, hey, we're going to like give it to you, but we can hold your hand a little bit while we point you in the right direction. So just adding those little special NPCs could tie into, like I said, the world with the seasons. Maybe certain Pokemon come out during this season, and maybe you don't realize that. So now the Poke Hunter is there to at least let you know that, hey, this might be a rare Pokemon you can catch right now. Poke Photographer might point you in the direction of a Pokemon that you might actually want to catch. Maybe it's a alpha that you weren't able to find previously. So just those things in general could just help the game once again feel more lively. It'll make you want to find these people, make you want to progress in the game to get these opportunities, to get these quests from these people. Ooh, and if you are still rocking with me right now, I just want to say I appreciate it. And if you're at this point in the video, just drop W analytics, W vid, man, something like that. W game. Just something to let me know that you're engaged with me and you're locked in with your boy. But yeah, let's get back to it. And even adding light voice acting would elevate these interactions. Not necessarily full dialogue, but, murmurs, short phrases, Pokemon cries that make conversations feel like tangible. Digimon does a good job even with like the simple the yeah, good job, like things like that. It's not the best voice acting in the world, but it helps pace it along for us, you know not just visually, but we get to hear us making a difference. We get to hear, some of those expressions and emotions from our characters, from other characters come out. So just adding in bits and pieces of that here and there would make the game feel so much more fresh. And this might be a little, some people might be on the fence about this one, but making the cries for the Pokemon, the original cries, what we hear in game now, keeping those in the overworld, but during the battle, that's when we hear that actual Pokemon anime cries, them actually saying their names, or portions of their names. Like that, coupled in with being able to hear the cries in the overworld, would allow us to, recognize what we've been hearing for the past 30 years, to us getting that breath of fresh air, of, hey, Pikachu. I mean, they were doing it with Pikachu, like in Eevee. Like, why can't they do it with, the rest of the Pokemon? I feel like that's something that should be super easy to do in code. The same amount of time it takes to put the regular cries in there, we can just add in the anime style cries, and that's a W. Everybody would enjoy that. I definitely would enjoy that. And one of my biggest things I would change for the NPCs is adding in a social meter. Being able to have the option to fail a side mission or some random quest that would pop up from an NPC. That way it could shift, how that NPC views you. Opening dialogue with them, well, new dialogues with them, or shutting down, more opportunities in the future. Or even, having like a negative effect. Maybe they come out with a higher level Pokemon or stronger Pokemon if you were to battle them in like a city tournament or something like that. But imagine, having a random photographer, not like that the special NPC I was talking about, but having like a random, worker or something like that ask you for a quest and you don't complete it by like the end of the day through the night cycle, that NPC might not ask you to fulfill a quest for him for like some time, or maybe, you do fulfill that quest and it's pretty quick, and he now wants to give you more quests with better rewards, or, stuff like that. So just adding in that type of social meter would allow us to, well, incentivize us to do more quests, not just for the sake of the rewards we get now, but the potential rewards we can get in the future. Maybe leveling them up higher, and that social meter gives us access to better rewards. Maybe we can get multiple master balls this way than trying to build like an item printer or something like that. This literally could be the new item printer. Just give us more quests and a social meter that gives us better items. Boom, that's our item printer right there. And last but not least, if we're talking about the NPCs bringing Lumiose to life, then obviously we have to have a way to connect with these NPCs. And what better way than to give us a true digital companion in the Rotom Phone? If you remember back in the old gen Pokemon games, we used to have the Pokegear, which allowed us to get in contact with other trainers who wanted to battle us again with stronger teams. Also let us know, I believe they also let us know if like certain Pokemon were spawning in like the air, like a certain route or something like that. Like if I'm not mistaken, let me know down in the comments below if I'm not just Mandela and myself. But the Pokegear was revolutionary back then, and I feel like they dropped that thing to the bottom of the ocean and they never tried to touch it again. But the Rotom Phone, I feel like, is the perfect way to introduce all this Pokegear back to us. Uh, it's literally a underutilized tool within the game since I want to say Sword and Shield. So imagine if the Rotom Phone acted as a true digital companion, evolving alongside us throughout our journey. Through it, we could use it to access those NPC contacts. We could track the active missions that we have with those NPCs, and we can even use that to, like I said, receive periodic updates on new requests, directly from the people we've met. It could also serve as a hub for live events, you know, city festivals, tournaments, or even like seasonal research missions popping up that could happen dynamically. We can use that to track those updates, check in real time, set reminders for these things. So maybe, we don't play the game for a couple days, we boot up the game, a reminder pops up for us to, hey, you're working on this, you only have so and so amount of time left to do it, or for when something is just happening nearby. Maybe even if there is a real, like in real life event going on, then you could, or I guess I should say IRL. that's showing my age there. But this could be the perfect way for players to be able to communicate not just within the game but also outside of the game as well. Maybe they give us a Rotom Phone app for, our smartphones, and then that way things that we do, or certain things that we can do in game, we could have synced to our phone. That way, if we need to go to GameStop or wherever to get a certain mystery gift, we don't have to bring the console ourselves. We just bring our phone that's connected through the Nintendo app, through to connect it to our Pokemon game, and then just use our phone like we would our Rotom Phone. We could literally use our phones to transfer, the friend request thing, boom, boom. Like, it's so many cool features now that we're in next gen territory with this, that we can go with this game. And before everybody says, "Oh, that's what the Nintendo app is for," how often do you use the Nintendo app to friend request in person? How often? How cool would it be to use your phone like the Rotom Phone does in game to transfer contact info? How cool. I mean, our phones literally are Rotom Phones. The Rotom Phone got them from iPhones. So think about it. Is my idea such a bad idea after all? Alright, let's get back to it. And last but not least, everything we've talked about, the world, the people, the connection to that world, it all builds back to the core, the actual Pokemon themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about catching or battling anymore, it's about actually living alongside them, which is why they gave us Lumiose City and not the Kalos region. And honestly, this is where there's only a few different things, or a few things I would make or improve upon the Pokemon mechanics themselves. And the first would be the flea mechanic. For more immersion, especially since we're living in like an actual city and it's not just a super crazy open world, I feel like the flea mechanic should be modified to something that feels more immersive. Scared Pokemon shouldn't just vanish into thin air, Instead, they should react like actual animals do. If they're scared or startled, they become evasive, they become super quick, but still a part of the ecosystem. If you scare a Fletchling or a Pidgey, instead of it just disappearing and while it's flying, it should actually I think all Pokemon, they should be able to run away, and I think they should be able to run away at maybe an increased speed. So with that being said, if you see a Pokemon and you startle it, maybe it flies away faster than the character can keep up with, but it doesn't disappear. Maybe it goes and flies on a roof that you can actually track. Because remember, I would add a tracker element into the game, both with an NPC and then a way to do this ourselves, Maybe a Eevee or something like that you see on the ground, maybe it might dart and disappear into the alleys, or run in a maze-like way through the city, making it harder for you to keep up with it, but it's still there, And that's where the tracking system can come into play, You can use things like fur trails, maybe footprints. Maybe you have a Pokemon that has, and I think we would probably have to either bring back abilities, or certain Pokemon might just have to have like a latent ability to do this, like we've seen with the Shuppet in one of the quests on the game. But having that ability to say, hey, this Pokemon, like maybe a Houndoom or something like that, would be able to track a Pokemon's by like scent or something like that. But just giving us the ability to actually track Pokemon that we've gotten an encounter with previously would be so much more beneficial. Being able to run into a shiny Pokemon and it runs away, now it's not just gone forever. You can put in more diligent work to catch back up with that shiny Pokemon and catch it. Now it becomes more of a storyline in the game for yourself, or an active activity versus just, hey, it's a shiny, boom, I caught it, boom, like, oh snap, it's trying to get away. I'd be damned if this shiny Pokemon gets away. So having that aspect added to just the flea mechanics of the game would improve so much, and it would give so many people less anxiety when playing this game. I swear it would. It so would. And the final thing from what I see so far that I would change about the Pokemon mechanic of the game is during battles, the controls for player and Pokemon are reversed. So then we become the active move. The Pokemon becomes the active moving character, and our player becomes, follows behind the Pokemon at like a trainer distance, I guess I would call it. So then that way it puts more emphasis on keeping your trainer out of harm's way during wild Pokemon encounters, while also giving you more freedom to battle for PvP. It's still the same X, Y, A, B to attack, and it would just be about adding in one of the trigger buttons, I guess, for like a dash move or something like that, or an ability to dodge. And I swear this would be the best Pokemon game ever made. You switch the controls only during the battle system, the battle sequences, and I promise you, this game becomes the number one Pokemon game. To me, this is number one Pokemon game out. In my personal opinion, I will die on this hill alone. But switching out the character and the Pokemon movement system during battles, the only other thing I would change. You think about that and you see how much more beneficial that would be when it comes to not only battling real time, well, multiplayer, but just single player, and it brings so much more to the game. It makes you honestly want to play now with so many more characters, because Pokken Tournament gave us, a select roster. Now you'd have the opportunity to play as that whatever Pokemon you want to. Pikachu on Pokken Tournament, you can play as Raichu or Pichu on this. You can play as Clefable. You can be Dragapult. You can be, whatever Pokemon you would like to be, and still, be the top player at the. It's so crazy how that simple aspect could make this game so much more better on the battling side. But that is my list of things that I would change for the game. Change is actually a crazy word. I guess I mean improve for the game, because as of right now, I like the direction that we're going with it, and it has me super excited for Generation 10 and what we're going to get from the next mainline Pokemon game. So, when I look at Legends Z-A, I see a game that is experimenting with its identity. It's refining what Pokemon can be, and I think that's what excites me the most. The building blocks are all here, an open world that breathes, systems that react, and Pokemon that feel more alive than ever before. They just need to, just be pushed a little further. And if Game Freak can keep evolving in this direction, giving us more time to live in the world, deeper ways to connect with the people of the world, and just more meaningful relationships with the Pokemon itself, then we're not just looking at, what's coming in the future of the series. We're looking at the future of what a true Pokemon experience can really be. And that's what I see when I see this game. But that's all that I've learned, and that's all that I would improve on. I want to hear from you guys. What would you change about Legends Z-A, or improve on it, to make it more immersive, more modern? Drop down your thoughts below, and if you enjoy these deep dives, make sure you like the video, subscribe, man. I'm going to be doing more of these now that I actually have my hands on the game, and now that we're getting closer to the DLC, the end game. There's definitely more of this stuff going to be coming out. So make sure you hit that noti bell so you don't miss any more of this. But Without further ado, Rico, I've been on for 25 minutes. This is crazy. I gotta go touch some grass or something. Everybody, holla at you later.